Keith, you're the club guest at this weekend's FA Cup tie. Obviously, two clubs you've got fond memories with. We're just going to have a little bit of a chit chat kind of around your time at both clubs. Starting with obviously Scarborough, you left Middlesbrough. Tell us about kind of when you first joined there. What are your first memories?
First memories, yeah. I remember not enjoying football. I got released obviously as a young pro at Middlesbrough. I think about 19, 20 years old. Had a few injuries. Went there at the end of a season, sort of April onwards, and it was that sort of first love playing in front of a crowd. Obviously being in a youth setup, I just remember like literally reigniting myself again, and just having that buzz playing in front of a crowd was really good. Fans were really good, amazing. We obviously played at the same level at Burton Albion at the time. So I ended up signing there till just till the end of the season of non-contract, and then signing the following year under Russell Slade, who obviously was a successful manager after that, going to Grimsby and Leyton Orient, so he was excellent for me at the time. And I loved it. I loved the people were brilliant there. Didn't live there, still live back in the Middlesbrough area, but carpooled up every day. Used to stay over on a Friday night down in the B&Bs down on the sort of the beach area. Really welcoming people. I loved it. I could have at the time I think moved to another club at the end of that season, but I remember Russell Slade at the time saying like, look, you probably just need to just play your football and stuff. So stayed there for a year, about 20 months in total, but got injured as per usual, ended up leaving there after about 20 months, but really enjoyed it. And obviously there was an FA Cup run with Chelsea at the time as well, which I wasn't involved in, unfortunately, but being around the town, it was pretty big for the area, similar to probably when Burton played Man U a few years later.
Yeah, obviously you mentioned the FA Cup there. Tell us about kind of, obviously, young boy coming over from Ireland. What are your kind of first memories of the FA Cup as a competition, and what makes it so special?
Well, the FA Cup for us in Ireland, really, obviously, most people from Ireland, when you're my age, when you were kids, it was like supporting Liverpool or Man U. So my sort of first memories of it really are sort of Man U, and I think it was probably the 94 season, probably, when I think they beat Chelsea. Or even probably 91 when sort of the League Cup or FA Cup. It was sort of igniting at that time. The FA Cup was big, but only big for the big teams, if that makes sense. It was only till you came to England and played in it and being at clubs like Scarborough and Burton that you realised the purity of the FA Cup, that these rounds where it starts and what it means for non-league clubs to do well in the FA Cup, and that's why you get these great stories.
Yeah, obviously you touched on your time at Scarborough and the massive buzz around the draw with Chelsea. Unfortunately, you didn't get to obviously play in that tie, but did you think your chance was gone to almost ever play against one of the big boys in the competition?
Yeah, probably. I think you've got to be very lucky to obviously you earn your right to get through these rounds and stuff, but to drop on teams like a Chelsea or a Man United or a Liverpool, it's balls out of a hat, isn't it? So I remember watching that game from the sideline, and the likes of Frank Lampard in the first minute, hitting a 45-yard shot just inside his own half, hitting the crossbar. Yeah. Then you had Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank playing, and people like that who obviously came to Burton years later as a manager. But yeah, certainly you probably don't think it'll happen again. And I remember at the time, although you're part of it, if you're not playing, you do feel that you're missing out a little bit. But it just like really generates such positivity for the town. Everyone comes together. Mm-hmm. The papers come in, the TV cameras come in, and I bet you probably speak to the Scarborough fans now, they'll still probably remember that, even though it was 20 odd years ago. Yeah,
obviously you did get the chance again, this time at the Pirelli Stadium with Burton. Obviously we're going to touch back on when you first came to the club. How did you find it? How did it all come about? What are your first memories of joining Burton?
Yeah, first memories, I've said it numerous times really on previous interviews, but I left Scarborough, had a couple of months at Darlington, and then it sort of coincided with the new build here at the stadium, which is what was that, 2005. I just remember it, obviously speaking to Nigel Clough at the time. When I left Scarborough, he tried to get me down before going to Darlington, sort of like on a non-contract. But I wanted to see how if I could do anything in League Two. It was probably the wrong choice at the time, and those sort of phone calls, even though you weren't signed, sort of, helped probably make that decision in the summer to come to Burton. Just remember it as a non-league club, but really professional in how things were being done. Just you had that instant feel of it felt like the right place to sort of live and play. It just again coincided with the new build of the stadium, which was quite exciting, playing for the likes of Nigel Clough. They're all a factor into making a positive decision.
Yeah, if someone had told you then that you'd have ended up being here as obviously as long as you did, and having the affinity with the club you did, and obviously becoming academy manager now, would you have believed them?
Yeah, I don't want to offend Burton people, but probably not. No, I didn't really know. I remember being young, quite first few years in England, being quite homesick. I'd always thought probably I'd move back to Ireland, but like I said, it was probably moving here where finally sort of settled a little bit, getting a little bit more mature. It's mental that it's nearly 20 years on. But yeah, I love the place, love the town. I've been lucky that the club's been on a rise ever since, really. Going from sort of Conference North into the Conference, that's when I joined, and it went on an upward spiral right all the way up to the Championship. So even though I left and been in the area, there was still a real good buzz around the town, and obviously then consolidating in League One for the last few years. So it just shows you how far the club have come. But yeah, to be here 20 years on, I'm not so sure I would have thought. It was probably getting married is probably tipped that one.
Secured it,
yeah.
So obviously you mentioned there kind of the FA Cup and kind of the rise that the club has had. How important was that FA Cup run that we had, obviously ended up going to Old Trafford? How important was that, do you believe, for where the club is to where it is today?
Yeah, I think it was huge at the time, but I suppose it's just a moment in time. But I think back then it probably just generated more revenue to, probably promote the brand of the club, which was huge at the time. Like a game against Man United goes around the world, doesn't it? And equally probably helped the chairman and what he needed to do, but also helped the manager probably to attract better players. Because what I noticed about the club, every season there was 2 or 3 players in, not many left, and it was just a slow build to get where it is today, really. So, you can do so much, but having that where it probably helped financially massively to sort of just kick it on another gear. I won't know completely, I suppose. Ben would know better, but it certainly had that feel of we signed players like Darryl Clare, if you remember, and people like that, where I remember at the time signing players like that. People saying at the time, if it happened a few years ago, you'd never get players like that. So it just allowed it to grow, and it came at a good time, I think.
Yeah, obviously going back to that FA Cup run, what are your kind of memories? You played such a crucial part in that, obviously, the win against Peterborough, and then we went to the tie against Burscough, which usually would maybe not attracted the crowd that it did, and then ultimately going on to play Manchester United at the Pro League.
Yeah, it was quite a strange experience, because obviously, if you remember, I think we, although it was a new ground, a new pitch, we had problems with the drainage, I think. So the game on the Saturday got called off, and the draw was on the Sunday. So everyone going into that Burscough game knew that whoever won the game, you're playing Man U. So rather than getting 1,000 or 2,000 in, it was like nearly 5,000 in to watch that game. Which I just remember that being a really good game of football. There was a little bit of tension. But actually, I think we went 2-0 up quite early.
You turned it on that night, right?
I got 2 that night, and I set up one as well, just to tell Sean Harry that. But no, it just had a real buzz about it. That was the Peterborough game was a shock in itself. I think Peterborough were League One at the time under Mark Wright, so drawn there and then winning the replay, if I remember correctly. So every game had a real buzz about it, but that Burscough one in particular, just because we knew what was at stake. it came probably with a bit of pressure, but it came around that quick also, from the Sunday to I think it was the Tuesday night we played. And there was a lot of euphoria around it, with Sky already being there because we knew the draw. And I think that's where it started, that sort of 2-week, 3-week build up, or it could have been 4 weeks even, but taking us right into that Christmas period. And then obviously playing Man U here live on Sky was sort of the top off to it. And I don't think anyone would have expected us to obviously get a draw that Sunday evening, but it was amazing. It's sort of something you don't enjoy at the time, but I just find it mental from a footballer point of view that one game is still talked about to this day. And I think that as a footballer, you shouldn't be like talking about, it's just one game of football.
Yeah.
But it still seems to be talked about even now, which is I still can't work that out.
Yeah, for those that don't know, putting it into perspective, obviously we're non-league at the time. A lot of you guys were kind of part-time players still. How do you think that could be done again?
Football will throw anything at you, can't it? You just never know in football. There's always shocks around the corner. This is a really probably selfish thing to say, but when you think of the great memories in FA Cup history, you just think of, imagine if you just sneaked a 1-0 win, that would be real history. But I think obviously getting the replay as well was probably a bit more lucrative for the club at the time. But yeah, you don't know, do you? You don't know. I think what was really good about that actual result was the fact of the players that Man U played that night. I think I was speaking to you today, I forgot that half of these players were actually in the starting 11. You had the likes of Solskjaer, Sylvester, Tim Howard was in goal, Wes Brown, like we said, PK. So when you look at it like that, you go, well, actually, it is a big result. But like I said, I don't want to be negative on the pitch, but that pitch helped us out a little bit as well, because we like to play football, but if you're coming up against European champions and stuff, you probably need a little bit of help and luck.
Yeah, and then obviously we get the draw and you end up playing at Old Trafford. I mean, is that beyond your wildest dreams?
Yeah, obviously being a Man United fan was huge. I think the week before, Nigel arranged us to go up and have a look around, almost like a stadium tour type of thing. And where does that happen in football, that you're going to come up and look at the stadium and have a tour like a fan, and then you're going to play in them 6 days later? So that was quite strange.
Did the nerves settle in ahead of that one a little bit more? The fact that you've got to go and do it again, or was it a bit like, okay, we're
it was a completely different feel in the game. Yeah. The first game felt a game. If you ask most of the players that were around, and I still speak to a few of them now, the second game, although it was amazing, it was almost like it's Man U at Old Trafford, and it was like a day out. Yeah. And you could sense that with the 11,000 fans and stuff, and conceding early. And although the fans loved it, as a footballer, it just didn't feel right. Yeah. It just felt like you're here for the party.
You'd want a competition.
Yeah, it's like the job has already been done. And although we were playing non-league at the time, every game we go into non-league, it's like it's do or die, isn't it? It's trying to win a game of football. So that was really. I always remember that being strange, almost being congratulated you've lost 5-0 after, and it's just not in the psyche of any man or player, I don't think. But when you look back, of course it was an amazing thing to do, play at Old Trafford. And again, in that game, similar team played, but the likes of Giggs came on, Ferdinand came on. And again, where does this happen in football, where at the end of the game you're asking for shirts and people are asking it while the game's going on, basically, so that again, I couldn't get a shirt because apparently all the players have already asked these players as they come on the pitch, and I didn't agree with it. I thought it was a joke. We said it to them after, so how can you do that? But they're the ones that hung on their wall, not me.
Still a bit bitter about it.
I just couldn't get how you can ask a football player in the middle of a pitch playing in a game, can I have your shirt after? So maybe that's what it should have been.
Yeah. And then obviously fast forward all these years, you're now here as academy manager. You do a lot of work with the first team over the years as well. Great affinity with the club. When you see the FA Cup draw, it may not have been the most attractive time for everyone. But what did it mean to you? Obviously, Burton against Scarborough, it must have been nice to see.
Yeah, it was nice because I think it sort of takes you back in time, as in maybe how the two clubs were, sort of, I would say. Like Scarborough is a big club, I remember, in non-league and stuff, and the fan base, and Burton were sort of at the same time, and unfortunately for Scarborough it went in a different direction where they had to almost liquidate, I think, and reform, and like credit to the like the fans and the town for doing that. I think that they move out of the area. It was funny because I think me and my wife drove up about 8-9 years ago. I was just going, oh yeah, play it, and you looked at I think it was the old McCain Stadium, and it's just grass, and like it's quite sad to see. So actually to see them then doing so well now again, and under a good manager in Jonathan Green, and who I know from, or he won't remember me, but from Middlesbrough days, it feels like it's a club on the up again, and I think that's what the FA Cup's about. You know, you've got Burton Albion who have consolidated the league for the last how many years, and you've got a club potentially trying to get back there again. So for me, it's nice to see. Obviously, we hope it's a good result for us. But as a draw, I think it's a really good FA Cup draw.
And then obviously you'll be here at the game on Saturday as the club's special guest. You'll be over at the pre-match fan zone. You'll be doing the rounds in the executive boxes and speaking on the pitch at half-time. You looking forward to it?
Well, I had no choice because you told me I'm doing it.
Well, there's only one person for it, right?
No, of course, yeah, and it'd be yeah. It's just nice. It's nice to see what the club are doing with the fan zone. There's a lovely buzz about it at the minute on match days, and it gets more people, you know, ready and in spirit for the games. So yeah, I am enjoying it. I don't tend to do these things a lot, as you know. So yeah, it'll be good, and like I said, hopefully it's a good result.